Just waiting for the live stream to start. And you should be good, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, ready? Good evening, everyone. Welcome you to the 14 May 2025 TPZ meeting. Please stand and pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, would you please conduct a roll call?
Sure. Commissioner Fox,
Here.
Commissioner Murphy,
Here.
Commissioner Lemon,
I believe he's online.
Commissioner Davis,
Here.
Commissioner Pascarelli,
Here.
Chairman Sobieski,
Here.
Commissioner Woods, Commissioner Hoffman,
Here.
Commissioner Wakana.
Here.
You're all set.
Okay, I'd like to appoint Commissioner Wakoma for Commissioner Woods. And I think we're all set with that.
Yep.
Okay,
No changes to the agenda?
sorry.
So there are no changes to the agenda.
Okay. All right, public participation, items listed that are not listed on the agenda, up to 3 minutes, please. Who wishes to speak? Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Will McCarthy, 206 Churchill Drive. Just following up on what we talked about last meeting. As far as the Kids Lane property. If we can be proactive on that as far as determining what we're gonna do about rezoning it so that company can be built there. As it's going right now, I don't believe we can build anything. That store of some kind. The other thing that I talked about last meeting was, the Department of Transportation's inability to keep the, Hopkins Drive property debris-free, along Main Street across from the transfer station. I was informed that the DOT would come out and take a look at, take care of it. But right now, it doesn't matter anymore because all the weeds have grown up and covered everything up. So I guess it'll just go until fall or winter again. Thanks.
Question, Bill. Are you referring to the detention pond off of Route 15 southbound, or are you referring to the stream behind it?
I'm confused.
Right across from the southbound drive of the DOT, there's a DOT retention pond, which handles all the water coming out of the DOT parking lot, along with the road above it, goes into there and then flows down into the brook.
No,
That's not what you're referring to.
no, this is on Main Street itself.
This is right across from the transfer station, Hopkins Drive, that project there, the PUD. Right across from the entrance to the,
From the dump to the dump, you mean?
Yeah,
Yes.
right across the street from the dump.
that Hopkins Drive thing.
No, I know where.
Oh, okay.
So my
Oh.
question was, is that DOT's responsibility or is it the town's?
No, Eric will tell you that they have a conservatorship thing with their property. That we can't, that nobody can do anything with that property or something to that effect, 25 feet from the road. Is that correct, Eric?
The Hopkins Drive properties along Main Street have a conservation easement behind them of like 20 feet.
Okay,
So where that 20 feet ends and where the right of way is, it's DOT right of way. If they choose to cut it and clean it, that's,
okay. I thought you were referring to the waterway and back. Okay, hi, Eric.
Yeah, it's like that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
no one online has their hand raised, Mr. Chairman.
Oh. Go ahead, Bob. Please state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Chairman. Clean up after us up the street. Hey, Mr. Chairman, Bob Tower, 32 Edmund Street. And I'm
you guys can help me out with this, but I brought this to the attention of council maybe a couple months ago about speeding, putting up, and everything costs money, I understand that, but there's some things I'm gonna throw out because I see people, and I know you guys have to see it too, people running red lights and speeding and about putting up cameras, those signs that say 35 miles per hour and tells you how fast you're going when as you're approaching, kind of like a radar system, and notes it because I see some terrible things. I remember on Cedar Street, a guy had turned the corner already, he was down the road about 20, 30 feet, and some guy just went through the intersection on Cedar Street and almost rammed him. I couldn't believe what I was like something out of a movie. And so I don't know how much you guys input you have with the chief, town council, how much you communicate, but just some signs, because let's put it this way. If somebody lives in Middletown and they're driving through the town of Newington to get whatever, West Hartford or something like that. And a month later, they get a traffic ticket from the town of Newington, come from the police department or just the town hall. I say get a ticket for $100. Why get a ticket? Well, there's a little picture of them speeding through a traffic light or something like that. And I think something like that would really get around, especially these kids who just total disregard for people's public safety. And I had talked to Lieutenant Dean about putting something on the street that I live on, Edmund Street, because my neighbor has a 2-year-old and across the street they have a 3-year-old. I'm just concerned because guys go down my street at 40 miles an hour. And it's just, I don't know how much you're involved in public safety with the TPC, or you work with town council, or if, like I said, the chief of police. And just a safety concern on my part. I just would want to see something bad happen to somebody the way these people are driving out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else?
No one online has their hand raised.
Okay, next is the zoning officer's report. Does anyone have time to read it? Any questions? I looked at it and you're doing a great job, Eric. I'm very happy with it. I know you're a one-man show.
All right.
Okay. Any remarks by commissioners? Okay. There's public hearing. Paul.
Okay, so you can read the procedures if you like. They are up. I don't know if you would like to do that.
Sure. Procedures for public hearings. The order of proceedings at public hearings shall be as follows. A, convening by chairperson. B, reading of the notice by the commission secretary or a commissioner designated by the chairperson to act in their stead. C, presentation by applicant. D, town planner report on the application. E, persons wishing to speak in favor of the application limited to 3 minutes per person. F, persons wishing to speak in opposition to the application limited to 3 minutes per person. G, rebuttal by the applicant limited to 5 minutes total. During a public hearing, it shall be within the discretion of the chairperson whether the time limitations should be varied slightly, provided the commission consents to any such variance by a majority vote.
Okay, so what I can say on this one is I will not have a public hearing notice to read because this has been continued. So this is a continued item. So this is TPZ 25-4 zoning regulation text amendment to add section 6.9 alternative energy accessory structures. Again, the applicant is the Newington TPZ and the contact is me, Paul Dixon. So again, this was continued from the meeting of April 23rd. So I've actually invited the fire marshal here tonight to give a little rundown on NFP 855 and kind of the fire safety aspects of it. I can report that to date, I have not found any statutory authority to put a bond or some type of surety. It is something that I know that there has been some desire to do. It's something that's done on large scale projects, but just our state hasn't caught up yet with the regulations to empower us to be able to do that. While in other states, they do have regulations that specifically cite that authority. Again, I've reviewed this with the town attorney. We've searched and have not found any authority yet that would enable us to put this type of bond. Again, when we do bonding, our bonding is more public improvements, is what we're allowed to bond for, and that's only till they're complete. And then for items that are incomplete on a site plan, for a CO, but ultimately it's return and for those items to be complete. This is a longer lead public safety type of item or a surety to make sure that it could be removed or would be removed, but we just do not have that statutory authority to actually ask for that as of yet. So what I've asked, and the fire marshal has graciously agreed to attend tonight, because I think a lot of the questions have really centered around fire safety. They've centered around the concern for what are these units? How are they going to be treated? How are they going to be commissioned, decommissioned, and what are the safety risks? Again, nothing is without risk. Normal generators have risks to buildings, large electrical systems, solar fields. Everything has a certain degree of risk with it. But I've asked again the fire marshal, DJ Zordan, to be here tonight, and he's prepared some information for you to kind of get some stuff on the record, but also for your consideration.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name's DJ Zordan. I'm the fire marshal here in Newington. So I guess
Okay.
my address would be 200 Garfield Street.
Okay.
Eric, you're good if I share?
Yep, you're good to go.
Thanks. All right. Here we go. All right, so good evening. I will start off first by saying I guess I'm supposed to be the expert in all of these NFPA codes. But there's quite a few of them. So this is while it's not new, it's new technology. All of this energy storage stuff is evolving day by day. So what I try to do for you is to give a quick breakdown of how our fire code works, what we are responsible for enforcing. So it will be better help you develop your regulations. Any new structures like this, we'll call it a structure, is gonna have to go through two parts of our fire safety code. The first is what we call part 3, and it deals with the building features, the maintenance. It also deals with TINs and permits and all that. That's generally what we look at for buildings. That's part 3. More importantly, we have the Connecticut Fire Prevention Code, which deals with basically processes. So with this being a utility related operation, a lot of our focus would be from the Connecticut Fire Prevention Code. So we reference that document first. That gives us our authority to actually enforce the safety requirements. And there's 16 different areas that we can enforce. There's 3 of them that I think that falls into the enforcement of these energy storage systems. So prevention of fire and other related emergencies, inspections of permanent and temporary processes, and then conditions affecting firefighter safety. So there's a chapter, I mean, it's literally like 2 pages long in this book that talk about energy storage. But what it does do is it references, as Paul said, 855. So NFP 855 is the standard for energy storage systems, and that's where we get a lot of these safety requirements. So without trying to make anybody a code expert, the first thing that we have to look at is what's the actual size of this system, if you will. So, whoops, I lost my, did I stop sharing? Yeah, no? Okay. Sorry about that.
Happens to us all.
So it's dependent on the types of batteries that are present, how big they are, what the actual operation is. From there, we'll evaluate all of the different, again, that's the chart we initially look at, that threshold. But from there, we'll evaluate the following items. So what we enforce or what we're allowed to enforce is the minimum. We require all of these processes, if you will, to a minimum safety standard. And it's the maximum that we, the fire marshal's office, can ask for. So in an effort to not recreate the wheel, these are the things we're going to look at. If there's something that you folks want to increase, that's what you would increase, or on the regulatory side with the zoning regulations that you're developing. So when I discussed this with the planner, there were several areas that he thought you might have the most interest in. So permitting, the emergency operations plan that's required, commissioning and decommissioning, installation and location, and then fire suppression and water supply. So again, really quickly, this would obviously go through any installation, whether it's in a building or outside of a building, would go through the town's permitting process. It's actually, I think this is one of the best processes that any town has that I've been part of, but planning and zoning would look at it from their compliance, and building and fire marshal would look at it from the code enforcement end. And nobody gets a permit until conditions are satisfied. So pretty much the same as any other project in town. The requirement of an emergency operations plan. So it has to be readily available to emergency responders. That's a code requirement. However, it doesn't make sense to put it on a building or inside of a building that might have a fire. So what we would require is that it's made available to us. We would then forward it. It's part of pre-plans. It's readily available before any incidents happen. So that's something that we would maintain. And when there's changes, we would communicate them out to all of the, public safety agencies. But it has to include the following. So these are things that won't typically change because the NFPA standard requires them. So procedures on how to perform a safe shutdown, de-energizing, or isolation. Procedures for inspection and testing of alarms, procedures to be followed in response to a notification from an energy storage management system. So these are obviously monitored, these installations. So when it's monitored, the vendor, if you will, is going to tell us, hey, when an alarm comes in, this is how we handle it. So we can evaluate it to make sure it's being handled correctly. It includes emergency procedures to be followed. This is the most important, obviously. So there's going to be procedures laid out as to how to handle any incident that happens to these. And there will be training involved to the first responders. There's response considerations. If you're familiar with an SDS sheet or safety data sheet, any sort of hazardous materials or anything that's specific to this installation would be provided to us prior. So everybody is prepared and they know what they're going to encounter should an emergency arise. How to deal with any sort of damaged equipment. And then anything else that we deem necessary. So AHJ is the fire marshal's office. So all of these would be required. It's not necessarily something that your regulation has to touch. But again, you can do whatever you want. These are the things we are automatically going to ask for before we approve any installation or a permit. The other big thing is a commissioning plan. How are we going to put this into service? And I don't want to waste anybody's time, but there is a commissioning plan required. I believe you all have a list. This is, again, a snapshot directly from NFP 855 of the things that are required prior to putting it into service. And this is one of the most unique standards because it requires a decommissioning plan before you put it into service. So if it's going to come out of service at any time, they're telling us before they install it how they're going to take it out of service. So both of those are required. I don't see those changing ever. So again, the process that, you guys can read these, this is certainly available if you want to come to the office and take a look more in depth. But this is a consensus standard. It's a national standard. It's really not going to change too much, as far as these parts go. So here's where I think a lot of the discussion that I've heard anyways is, installation and location. So, everything has to be installed in accordance with the listing, in accordance with manufacturer's installation instructions, and this standard, which is 855. An outdoor installation, again, maximum that we can enforce is 10 feet from a lot line, a public way, a building, stored combustible materials, hazardous materials. So our code allows us to say, hey, if it's, 15 feet away, that's good. If that's something that you guys want to increase, then that would be on you and your purview, but that's also on the zoning enforcement officer to enforce. We can't enforce your regulations. It does allow for some reductions, you can see. And it does take into account air quality. So if there are buildings that are close to this installation, it says it has to be 15 feet away from any sort of HVAC, doors, loading docks, ignition sources, things like that. So it's not just if there's a fire, this thing minus any just environmental ventilation for temperature control. If there is any sort of process or ventilation for like a chimney or ductwork or things like that, it has to be 15 feet away from any sort of air intake from another building or the same property that it's on. There are a few things that a developer or a designer could do to reduce some of these. Basically, it includes building barriers. So you can go down to 3 feet from things if you build a barrier, if you have a 2-hour fire resistance rating, things like that. So we want to make sure that these are separated from other buildings. And then the last part, and I will certainly answer questions, but when it comes to fire suppression and control, there's 3 different tables that I've included for you from 855. It's for indoor installations, it's for outdoor installations. And then they specifically segregate rooftop and open parking garage. All of them require fire suppression systems. So when we talk about a fire suppression system, most people will think sprinkler system, but there are alternatives. It could be dry chemical, it could be, it's FM 200, but it's almost like halon. So it's a gas that would release, it would displace the oxygen in the area, which again puts the fire out. So there are different alternatives to just a plain sprinkler system, but fire suppression is going to be required. There's a few scenarios that the authority having jurisdiction, again, our office can omit that, but they would really have to justify a good reason as to why we would do that. We have a very good relationship with our state fire marshal's office. So if there are any other, any major questions or any technical things that need to be evaluated, they're available for us to call on at any time. But generally, the safety concerns that we're going to look at across the board are in front of you. So again, I hope that I explained this good enough. Give you some information to think about as you develop your regulations. And I'm certainly open to any questions if you have any that I can help with.
Thank you. Commissioner Harpy.
Thank you. In your report here, under the scope of Fire Prevention Code CFPC, would you be doing a regular maintenance schedule review at certain periodics of time with the best system?
With the best, it would actually depend on where the system is installed. And by that, I mean what type of building it's installed next to. So I believe this is Health Tracks.
Yep, that's the potential applicant for the future. Yep.
So if we were to use that for our code, that's an assembly building. That's how it's classified. that's an annual inspection. So we would do the inspection of the building, which would encompass that particular installation. There are buildings, certain buildings, supermarkets, I don't remember them all off the top of my head. We inspect every 2 years, and there are certain buildings that we inspect every 3. So it would be incorporated into the building inspection cycle when we actually do these inspections.
If you were to have a preference, would you prefer the best unit out somewhere outside, inside, or the roof? What would, if you had those choices,
I think
at
that.
your own wish?
I think the safest, is if it's outside where it's separated truly from the building, it's safer. But I have seen buildings, in one of my previous roles, I've seen a building, it was a data center for a very large medical, insurance company. And they had a battery energy system installed in their building, but it is segregated. It's specifically built out to be separated. So everything's 2-hour rated. So regardless, we're gonna make sure it's safe. And if there is a fire in a room, if it's inside, it's not gonna escape that room. But outside certainly makes it easier to fight a fire, and keep any occupants of whatever building safe.
What are the variables with an alkaline battery fire? What kind of a monster are you dealing with one of these things?
I mean, I can't really speak to the specifics of the different battery types.
Just in general, then, if you could.
I mean, in general, the biggest concern as far as from a fire suppression standpoint is you're working with electricity. So are we going to throw water on this, unit that is potentially energized? That's the biggest concern. With the newer technology of batteries, obviously everybody I think is familiar with the lithium ion batteries, and they're going into, what they're called, it's thermal runaway. They're overheating, things like that. So the concern is, how do we put that out and make sure it's out? So again, having these units truly separated from a building makes it easier to say, all right, we only have to be concerned with that versus also anything spreading into the building.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions from the commissioners? I have a couple.
Sure.
DJ, one quick question. You said that you inspect these buildings based on wherever they're gonna go, whether it's 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year cycle. Am I correct?
Correct.
All right. What do you think about the idea of inspecting these best every year? I know it put a little bit more pressure on the fire marshal's office, but I'm just asking a question.
That's something that we would have to look at we'd have to ask the state for an evaluation on that to say if this is truly a separate building or if it's included in, again, the property. So we can't just go off and say, we're going to look at this. We're going to come in every year. The state regulates the frequency of inspections. So, if this were attached to a supermarket, we're allowed to go in there every 2 years. We can ask to come in every year, but if the property owner or the tenant pushes back, we have no legal authority to say you must. Again, if it's an annual inspection, perhaps by a third party, that's something that the zoning or planning and zoning can enforce through your regulations. But we would have to involve the state in changing the frequency of inspections.
Oh, I was just curious because, I mean, I don't know that much about these, but everything I've heard and read so far is once these things get going, they're a real big problem.
Mhm.
The other one is, on our regulations, I believe we put this in, we're gonna put balusters all the way around for protection. All right. And I don't know if we can require a yearly inspection or not.
That one's new, as far as looking into it, but I think, again, it's that cross between the zoning regulations and the fire code.
Right.
And just to make sure we're not going too far afield of what the zoning regulations are authorized to do. I think that would be a good question, as DJ noted, to reach out to the state and say,
Maybe-
okay, can it
maybe-
be done more frequently, or what is your, they likely, again, this is, multiple towns have been reached out and are dealing with this right now on a, local level, these things that don't meet the siting council's thresholds for having to go to them because they don't, again, hit that threshold where it would go to automatically to siting council where we only have a recommendation to them, a comment. So I think they might have been asked additional questions about it. It's something that we could reach out
Yeah,
and report back.
The only reason I brought that up is because I saw it on the news the other day, the siting council now is rethinking solar panels and these. So I don't know, I want to make sure our first responders, whether it be fire, police, whoever it is not going to wind up walking into a mess.
Mhm.
And that's my concern here. I'm sure the fire marshal does a good job when he inspects it, but we're talking 365 days, out in the elements. That's all I was concerned with.
And there is, we do discuss impact protection is what it's called in here. So just to give you a quick, the posts have to be constructed of no less than 4-inch steel. They're filled with concrete. So there is specific criteria as to what protection has to be provided around these units.
Yep, and we also have it currently in the regulation. I believe if it's within 25 feet of a parking area or a traveled way, a driveway, it requires that protection.
I just want to make sure, because when they originally came in, they were talking about putting a wood barrier up there with arborvitae, and that's not going to stop anything.
No.
So. Okay, any other questions? Yes, Commissioner
If I
Harpy.
might, just to expand it a little bit on the charging stations that are going up in this town as well as other towns for vehicles, electrical type vehicles. Do you have the same concerns in terms of the control of fire? Something should malfunction either while the car is being charged or after they complete the apparatus. I just wanted to get, in general.
That would be a question directed to the fire department itself. We actually don't have oversight of the actual charging stations. Building does for electrical connections and electrical compliance. But again, I think I'll speak to that generally. The concern isn't necessarily the charging station itself, it's the battery on the car. So
How well that's maintained, et cetera.
well, how well it's maintained, and then again, that turns into a vehicle fire. So the fire department, the fire chief would have to kind of expand on how they handle electric vehicle fires. I don't think I would be appropriate to speak to
Yeah,
that.
no, I just wanted to
So-
get your sense on it. And the one last thing I'd like to ask of Paul, the town planner, when you met with the town attorney and he said that we don't have any enabling language, did you have an opportunity to have a discussion that if an individual really wanted this best system, because there is benefit side of this, but a lot of danger, as the chairman points out, and I agree. Suppose the potential applicant or the applicant said, I know you have some issues about decomposing of this issue and everything and putting it down, bringing it down. And we will provide you with a bank letter of credit for 5 years, protect the town and ensure that the town can get this accomplished. Or is he saying to you, there's no enabling language that would provide for us to take any kind of collateral, even if it's a voluntary offer by the applicant?
Yep, so I don't want to speak directly for him on that one. I can ask more questions, but I think that our discussions kind of centered around, again, that no enabling language. And that's the key, is like, if someone wanted to do that, that's great. But our core is our regulations. It's actually the same thing as DJ was noting, that these are the minimums. Zoning regulations, building codes, fire codes are minimums. It's the minimum amount for safety. It's the minimum amount. So if someone wanted to offer that, great. But without that legislation in place, it would be something that, that we're not authorized to ask for. And I would be hesitant to, propose any type of regulations that would put
No,
the town.
I'm not
in that-
asking for that.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get a sense of both sides of the
Yeah,
conversation.
if someone wanted to offer one, of course I would accept it. Yeah, it'd be great. This would be safer. Yeah, we have that in place, but it's not something that, as of yet, again, we've done our searches that we found that we can ask for it.
Thank you.
Chris Minor has his hand raised online.
Yes.
Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you, Rick. Yeah, just in following up with the comments that Stan made, is it within our purview to consider more frequent inspections? Is that something that you were going to look into, Paul? Because I think that's the key, is to try to mitigate any exposed problems or degradation in advance before it becomes a problem.
Yep, that's something I can look into, yes. And that'll be kind of my question for the commission too, in general. After you're done with DJ and he can go home and eat dinner.
Okay.
Yep. And again, I think that, yes, it's something that we can definitely look into. And again, without marrying the two codes, just to make sure that we're in the right, that what we're asking for is we're authorized to do so.
If I can jump on that, I think it's something that we would typically get maintenance records. So your zoning regulations might say you have to provide us with annual maintenance records that we would verify as we go into these buildings, but at least you have them in advance. And if somebody looks at them and says, hey, look, here's the deficiencies, please address these right now.
Dude, I was looking for DJs that I want all the units to work together.
Sure.
You, us, building, everybody. So I want to make sure that all the bases are covered and nothing falls through the cracks, so to speak. And I'm very concerned with people responding to these.
Well, I think that we can certainly assist in looking again at a maintenance
Right.
record and saying, it's just that legal requirement, that authority that says,
Right, I understand.
so if the zoning regulation says you have to provide it, okay, here it is. We look at it, zoning looks at it. Hey, we have a concern about this. And then we can go back. I think that's absolutely something that can happen.
That's what I was looking at. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
And just to follow up on that, Stan, so as we were talking about the best systems, DJ had brought up, a previous life experience of coming across a best system within a structure. Paul, we're only dealing with this in terms of accessory dwelling unit, correct? We're not dealing with best systems as a whole if they were to be located within a building, or are they not allowed to be located within a building?
Yep. So for the accessory energy structure, for that unit, yes, zoning would only be looking at it outside of the building. Again, this is the interesting part that New York, in their legislation that enabled the towns to do so, actually has some things about indoor in their regulations, but it's more by ordinance. So that's like, there's kind of a mix throughout the country of zoning regulations, ordinances, and whatever your local legislation and however your local framework of government is. It's different. Our nation has many different ways. It's the same law, but how we put it together. So as far as zoning goes in Connecticut, this would only be on the outside. Inside it's inside the structure. If it's allowed by the building code, it's allowed by the building code. It will be regulated by building code and fire code with whatever requirements are in the structure. We're looking at it just on the outside as an accessory structure.
Okay, because I know that there was some consideration given to the National Welding site. Switching gears a little bit to the charging stations, of putting them located within the structure, if I remember hearing that correctly.
And I would have to look at that, but it's pretty common that the charging stations are actually, and if you have a parking garage, you have your charging stations within a parking garage. It was the same in Meriden when I was there too, that they had those installed in the parking garage. The charging stations themselves, you're not necessarily, not always, but you're not necessarily dealing with storage associated with them. Sometimes you are, sometimes you aren't. They aren't part and parcel to each other. But, there's switch gear associated with it. There is gear that's associated, but not a battery storage system. And again, if they did put one inside a parking garage, I don't believe one is proposed for 1 Myra Cohen Way. But If they did put them within the garage, again, it would be building and fire code, and inside the garage too would be outside of zoning's jurisdiction
Purview.
because within the building.
Okay. Is there any way to address that independently or no? Because I know that there have been several cases down at, I believe it was either Mohegan or Foxwoods, one or the other, has had several instances of generated car fires within the structure, and it just makes things very difficult for it to be an exterior to the structure.
Yep, that might be something that a town could look at under an ordinance, which is a broader police powers as far as health, safety, and welfare for the community. Again, that's a town council process, going through the manager, going through all, proposing it, or someone bringing it to council and then working on that and adopting such a thing. As far as the ordinances, again, public hearings, we all know that process. That would be a different way of looking at this, just to make sure. Again, it's newer for Connecticut, so we haven't
Right.
seen too many of them.
Right. Okay, that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Anybody else? All right, what's your pleasure?
So my question is, okay, so what I would recommend doing is at this point, we can see if anyone has any public comment, wants to
Okay.
speak for or against. Again, the public hearing's still open. And then after hearing any potential public comment, any more questions for me? And then kind of where the commission wants to go with this. It sounds like there's still some open questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody wishing to speak in public? On this on petition 25-4? Anybody online here?
No one has their hand raised.
Yep, and if you are online and you wish to speak, you can raise your hand in the Zoom application. We will be able to see that and then unmute you, just to let you know. Can we call for anyone for or against in the room?
Anybody speaking against this in the room? Anybody speaking against this on Zoom?
No hands raised online.
Or, yep, don't see any hands raised. So again, the public hearing is open. This is your regulation. This is the TPZ's regulation. It sounds like you do have some potential questions. I would like to close this public hearing sooner than later, but I don't want to close it before or recommend closure. That's your jurisdiction. But I don't want to recommend closure before you have the answers to the questions that you have. So this is how the commission, I think a discussion of how the commission feels about it, whether you would like to continue the public hearing or close the public hearing.
Commissioners?
Close it.
Sorry,
Close.
you want to close it?
I have no problem.
Yep. So my only recommendation, sorry to jump right in on that one, that if you close it and if I do come up with additional language, I would really like to have that language at the public hearing and put on the record, because I'm very protective of the record for the public hearing, making sure we have everything on it.
Right.
So if, again, with these questions that you have, if you do close it now, there will be no more public comment on it and no more testimony can be put into the record. So that would be my concern, that if you do have questions, if you close it now, any changes kind of end up in that gray area.
Commissioner Minor has his hand raised.
Commissioner Minor?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would be a little hesitant to want to close the public hearing at this point because I think there is some additional.
Bob?
Member of the public wishing to speak?
Evening again, Commissioner. I would like to see it stay open. If you guys have any questions, or ladies, I would like to keep it open, and because sometimes the public doesn't pay a lot of attention to what's going on in the town, and they should. And I mean, I do a TV show. I'm on TV about 11 hours a week in Newington. So I try to expose things that are going on either locally or internationally. But I would like to see this stay open. Hope you guys change your mind, consider it. Should not leave any stone unturned. Let's put it that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. And since we had a member of the public speak, I just call it out one more time for those people online. If anyone wants to speak in favor or against.
Anyone online want to speak in favor of this?
Commissioner Minor has his hand raised again.
Commissioner Minor?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you heard my comments before, Mr. Chair, if it switched off and you didn't. Did you hear my comments or no?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I would personally like to leave this open for one more meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we will keep it open
Yep.
for one more meeting.
Yep, so, we're kind of in discussion right now.
And I have a question about what our options are, because what I think I'm seeing happen is that we're continually gathering information, but we've got this draft sort of idea of what we would put in our regulations about this. And yet it seems like this is a very sort of new topic and there's new information coming down the line. So what are our options if we put together something for our regulations and with the information we have now, but we get new information later? Do we just revisit the regulations? Or can we just completely tap the brakes on the whole thing and wait and see how certain things at the state level develop? I mean, these are our regulations, so we don't have to rush to do anything, right?
Yep, so
Now,
it's,
but I know, having said that, I know that there is an application and we're being responsible to the applicant and we want to present them with reasonable guidelines.
yep, so I would say, along the lines of, what are your options? So it's zoning regulations are never perfect. You can't cover every single eventuality. If you did, they would be 1,000 pages long and they still would miss something. That's why keeping them, again, this one is pretty specific on distances and everything, to provide the, public safety. If something came up, yes, you would go through the process of amending the regulation. So, if something came up, you would be looking at a roughly 35-day timeframe. 40 days would probably be the quickest you could, just because of the notice to the state of any change in regulations. So that would be that going forward. As far as if you want to support this amendment after it goes through, we finish the public hearing, all information that we have to date is presented, you've had your questions answered, then you come to the actual approval of it or not. That'll be the commission's decision on whether you want to move forward with this. Again, we do know there is someone who would like to install one in Newington. They did come in for a pre-application and were originally going to write an amendment. Chose to not pursue the direction they were going, putting in the front yard. And then it ended up kind of on us to look at the amendment and to write the amendment. They could always apply for a text amendment at any time as well. Even with our public hearing going on, you can actually technically have dueling text amendments. It's an awkward thing that happens, but it can happen too. So I would say it sounds like you do want to consider this information. Again, you've got new information tonight as well. In that at the next meeting, if there are no other questions, that would be a good time to close it and again, be responsive to the potential future applicant. Hopefully I've answered your kind of multi-part question.
Yes.
All right, any other discussion? All right. All those in favor of keeping the motion open for one more meeting?
Yep. Mr. Chairman, what I'd recommend is a motion. We do have a motion prepared in front of you, which is, again, per the statutes, to be very specific about when we are continuing the public hearing to. So it would be the first one.
Yep.
Yep.
TPZ 25-4 zoning regulation text amendment to add section 6.9 alternative energy accessory structures AES applicant Newington TPZ. Contact Paul Dixon. Move to continue the public hearing for application TPZ 25-4 to the May 28th, 2025 meeting.
All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you,
It was
DJ.
hard for me.
Okay. Next one is approval of DPZ minutes from last meeting. 4/23. Is there a motion?
You're looking for a motion, so moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. New business, Paul.
So Gigi, would you like to read that?
Oh,
one?
sure. Petition TPZ 25-6 site plan modification here at 207 Deming Street and 3066 Berlin Turnpike. both in the PD Plan Development Zone for the construction of a 6,000 square foot building for an existing fraternal organization and associated utility and site improvements. Owner, Scottish Rite Foundation of Hartford Incorporated. Applicant contact Bruce Work. Application received 3/26/2025, 65-day decision due by 5/30/2025.
Yep, so I can say, and again, the applicant is here to give his presentation. We have been working with them. I think we've kind of noted to you that we received this application. They have refined it. We do have a motion prepared for you tonight, depending on how you see this application and what you consider. One of the main considerations along with, along with the site plan itself is they are asking for deferred parking on site. That is a specific item for the TPZ, again, for approval. It's not a item that is a must in the zoning regulations. It's the TPZ may. So this is something that you can do. However, on the property, there was previously deferred parking as well. So the site did operate with deferred parking in the past. I have not heard any issues about the site, even from the neighbors who, I've only received one inquiry about it just because they were looking, what was happening on the street. They saw this application. What are they doing? I think you're aware that the previous buildings, 2 of them have been torn down on site. And right now they're coming in front of you with this proposal to construct this dining hall and office building, which is 6,000 square feet. And again, it's just for the use of the fraternal organization. So we have the applicant and their engineer here tonight to give their presentation to you.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Jim Jones from Southington, Connecticut. I'm from Jones Engineering, and I'm representing the applicant for engineering and surveying matters. With me is Bruce Work. He is from the Scottish Rite Fraternal Organization. Good evening. I've looked there at the narrative prepared by staff and the get my glasses on here, and their memorandum here, and they pretty much describe everything that I would tell you about this. I mean, we're proposing a 6,000 square foot building. As he said, we've already removed existing buildings from the site. We're going to ask for a deferred parking, which was granted previously on the last application. I believe in your package, you'll see the old application that was submitted and approved. We're proposing infrastructure upgrades to the site. We've proposed infrastructure for the EV parking if it is added in the future. We've decreased the amount of impervious on the site by 23% by removing a lot of pavement. The older building was larger, so removing them and putting in the new building. We're basically just repaving and reestablishing the existing parking, putting in new handicap spaces, new lighting, and just in general upgrading the site, new plantings. I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say. It pretty much covers it. Unless Bruce had anything he wanted to say.
The original deferred parking was behind the octagonal building. And what we're proposing is just to move it, I guess that would be to the north, so that it lines up with the parking lot that is existing there now, which we're going to obviously renovate completely and repave it, restripe it, and put in the additional handicap parking as necessary. The building itself is just going to be a dining hall for our use. So the same people that go in there and have either a lunch or a dinner are going to be the same people that are going to go into the octagonal building for our ceremonials meetings and whatever else we're going to have. So it's not going to be a public available venue, if you will. It's not going to be for rent as a banquet hall or anything like that. Be used strictly by our fraternal members.
All any other additional comments?
Yep, you know, I can say like the increase, again, it was previously approved for 34 deferred parking spaces, what was it previously approved for? And this is just an increase to 38. So it's well within, you know, a very similar ballpark that they're asking for. Again, it is a reconfiguration of the site. Staff does have some comments, and I know these were generated after was it recently? Again, we received the updated plans on the 6th, I believe, or 6th or 7th. So the conditions that staff recommends for this is that the plan is approved with 38 deferred parking spaces per section 6.1.1K. The owner shall file the site plan in the office of the town clerk, stipulating that the owner or the successor and assignee of the owner will install as many of the waived parking spaces if instructed by a future TPZ commission request. Subsequently, the owner or successor and assignee of the owner shall install the parking spaces within 6 months of the commission's request. That is directly from the regulations. 2, the site plan, or the plans shall be revised to show proper grading for the accessible parking spaces. There's still just a little too much cross slope within a couple of the accessible spaces that looked at by the engineer. But again, I think that's something that's well within a tweak to the plan that can be accomplished. It's just kind of a curb height and just working through that. Sheet EXCOND, so existing conditions shall be revised to show proper building setback lines. And then, let's see, sheet LS1 shall be revised to reconcile the planting table with the planting plan. 5, the deferred parking area as shown shall be revised to include additional hammerheads at the ends of the drive aisles to ensure proper traffic safety and circulation within the lot. And 6, the plan shall include a detail of the previously installed Jersey barriers. So the one thing that was done on the site, and I believe it was actually in consultation with the with our police department, is, you know, the Grant Moors to the south of this. There was concern about vehicles traversing over it, trespass onto the property, and in consultation with the police department, the owner of the property installed a row of Jersey barriers along there. Again, there's nothing in our regulations that speaks one way or another towards this. It was something that was requested to be put on there and understood in size. And again, these are just, I think, items that could be worked with the applicant. You've kind of just heard them. If you'd like to read them directly, I have a copy of it in front of me. Again, because normally I would give it to you beforehand. But if you have any comments on those.
Paul, are these, I addressed all of these on the latest plans. Maybe they weren't reviewed. Maybe didn't have a chance to review them. They did come in late. The last set of plans I gave you, I'm pretty sure all these items were addressed.
Plans that I had, I can double check with the plan. Last plans I had, they were still said I had, we got on the 6th, I think, or the 7th. We're still, yeah.
When we
We're
dropped
still,
off.
yeah.
So I mean, they have been addressed. I mean, it just.
All right, we will confirm and just,
Okay.
we'll just.
Yeah. But I think the main thing that the TPZ kind of always wants to know too is that you're okay with these conditions. Since they are new to you, we didn't have a chance to discuss before, and you know, that's the full transparency just to make sure everyone knows. And again, none of these are major. These are all little tweaks on a drawing. There's nothing that's detrimental that would require the whole site to be redesigned.
Correct.
With the Jersey barriers, I had conversation with the police. We've had several visitors from the 5-star resort next door. And told us that if we put up a stockade fence, they'll just burn it. If we put up a chain link fence, they'll cut it down. So we were recommended to put up the Jersey barriers and keep the cars from flowing through there. There is a 2-foot space between them so that there is pedestrian capability, but hopefully it'll cut down on the motorcycle traffic and the visitors, if you will.
Commissioners, any questions?
Yeah.
Commissioner Nathas.
All that pavement back there is gonna be gone, right?
Which is,
On the west side,
it's gone already.
it's gone already, okay, I'm
Yes.
just looking at the picture we got here.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you look at the existing conditions plan, it's been updated.
Yeah.
To current, and it actually shows the pavement going.
Okay. And then also, I'm always in favor of reducing parking places where we can. This is all for your own people. You probably have a better idea what you need than we do. And you'd be more willing to put it back in when you need it as well. So I'm all for letting them have the deferred parking.
Commissioner Fox, any
I would
questions?
have to agree with Commissioner Nafis.
Commissioner Herpy?
I live near the project and it's very professional in terms of the way things are laid out, so I've no doubt in this gentleman's ability to carry it forth on his plans.
thank you. Appreciate
Commissioner
that.
Alcoma?
Adding the parking spaces makes sense.
Commissioner Pascarelli?
I have no questions. That's all pretty clear.
Commissioner Minor?
No, no questions.
Okay, I don't have any questions either. It looks very nice. It's like you've done a great job. Let's figure out, let's see who wants to talk in favor of this here. Please come up.
Oh, so it's a regular site plan.
What?
Regular site plan, no public
hearing.
comment. Yep. So again, it's up to the commission if you choose to act on this tonight. Again, we've proposed some recommendations, again, that will, with those recommendations, the plan complies with the zoning regulations. And as far as that, again, the time for the 65-day time window ends at the next meeting. Just for your information, that's why we include it on there, but they have been working with us to refine this plan in the goal for a coming once to the commission. And that's what we always try to work with applicants on that.
And Commissioner Minor has his hand raised.
Commissioner Minor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I would be in favor of acting on this tonight, just to not try to narrow down the 65-day time frame too much.
All right, thank you. Okay,
So if you are inclined to approve, again, we're under new business right now, and again, we do not have to move it to old business, so you can act right now if you choose to do so. And there is a motion prepared for you.
okay.
Want me to read the motion?
Yeah.
Okay. So motions for new business petition TPZ 25 -6 site plan modification at 207 Deming Street and 3066 Berlin Turnpike, both in the PD plan development zone for the construction of a 6,000 square foot building for an existing fraternal organization and associated utility and site improvements. Owner Scottish Rite Foundation of Hartford Incorporated. Applicant contact Bruce Work. Application received 3/26/2025. 65-day decision due by 5/30/2025. Move to approve with the following conditions. 1, the plan is approved with 38 deferred parking spaces as per 6.1.1K. The owner shall file the site plan in the office of the town clerk, stipulating that the owner or the successor and assignee of the owner will install as many of the waived parking spaces if instructed by a future TPZ commission request. Subsequently, the owner or the successor and assignee of the owner shall install the parking spaces within 6 months of the commission's request. 2, the plans shall be revised to show proper grading of the accessible parking spaces. 3, sheet ex-con D 1 shall be revised to show the proper building setback lines. 4, sheet LS1 shall be revised to reconcile the planting table with the planting plan. 5, the deferred parking area as shown shall be revised to include additional hammerheads at the end of drive aisles to ensure proper traffic safety and circulation within the lot. 6, the plans shall include a detail of the previously installed Jersey barriers and any conditions added by the commission, which there aren't any.
Reasons for approval.
Reasons for the approval, this application and modifications meets the requirements of the zoning regulations.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass unanimously. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Appreciate your help.
No problem.
Thank you very
And
much.
we'll get a copy of that.
Yes.
Yeah, you'll get a
I'll
copy
send out
of
the
it. too.
approval letter and it'll be in the paper next week on Thursday. The approval.
Oh, just one question, the filing of the plan. with The town clerk,
Mhm.
that's something you're gonna have to take care of. Okay.
Yep.
We'll circle around and get you going on that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So long.
Next
Have a good
petition,
night.
25-9.
So this is a pre-application. So just to remind the commission, it's been a little bit since we did a pre-application. I believe it's included in your packet, or should have been the agreement signed by the applicant that, again, this is for informational purposes to the applicant. It's non-binding upon the commission, and they are here to really seek input, information from the commission on how to proceed with their request. So again, this is petition TPZ 25-9 pre-application for discussion of the required front yard discussion of the required front yard requirements of section 6.10.4 along the Berlin Turnpike, specifically 2929 Berlin Turnpike, owner Berlin Turnpike 2929 LLC, applicant Matt Stefan or Stephen, contact Frank Vaca representing State Point Properties. I can kind of tee it up for you too, that, you know, the applicant, they will kind of go into kind of the series of events at the property that kind of led to where we're at right now. But the main thing is when town staff responded to the increased amount of parking, that was a temporary parking area to leave kind of a emergent situation. As far as the parking on site, just due to the popularity of the restaurant, as kind of laid out in the staff report. One of the items that was brought up by staff was this requirement. Again, this is the reminder of, we've seen this actually, I think more recently, a couple of times, of this 35-foot requirement within the front yard of the Berlin Turnpike, that no pavement, no above ground utilities, and no accessory structures shall be placed within it. So this is a, you know, one of our more prohibited front yard setback areas. And again, you're basically permitted to put landscaping in your driveway entrance within this area, and that is kind of all that's permitted by the regulations. Again, this is a existing site. It has some history, and at this point, I would like to turn it over to the applicant's representative.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For the record, my name is Francis Vaca. I'm a professional engineer at the BSC Group, 655 Winding Brook Drive, Glastonbury, Connecticut. I'm here on behalf of Doro Restaurant Group, who are operating Casa Doro, located at 2929 Berlin Turnpike. I also have with me this evening representatives from State Point Properties, who are the current owners of the property. And tonight we are here again, as Paul had indicated, for the request for pre-application review for additional parking, and in particular, the review of the requirements for 610.4 of the zoning regulations. So again, requesting pre-application review and discussion for the installation of the parking lot extension. I'm going to go through just a quick explanation of the existing site and the issues that kind of developed as a result of this moving forward. I'm going to go briefly through the parking lot design that is currently the concept that we are looking at and requesting comment from the commission. And then in particular, review the parking lot nonconformity and the request to waive regulation section 610.4, and then requesting the next steps of the commission to find out, you know, if we can move forward with a site plan application. Again, I'm sure most are familiar with the property, located at 2929 Berlin Turnpike. It was the former Bertucci's, now Casa Doro. Is located south of that area is the parking lot and Price Chopper Plaza and the Berlin Turnpike. This is an existing conditions plan of the site, lot size 3.56 acres. I've incorporated a modified, so this survey has been modified briefly graphically to represent the latest site plan application that shows the as-built, showing the additional 2,000 square foot patio and the reduction of some of the parking for the design of that patio. It's a 6,900 square foot building. And there are 109 parking spaces, which was approved at the commission meeting to allow for the installation of the patio. And I will state that at the time it didn't meet the parking regulation for the square footage of the public space within the restaurant. I will note that there is a wetland boundary through the center of the parcel. There is a wetland drainage. It's called a drainage ditch, but it is a wetland that is located outside of the boundary of the property. It basically runs separating the 2929 with the Price Chopper Plaza. And that is actually what generates the the wetland boundary identified here in orange. And again, they're beneficially for the town of Newington and for the restaurant itself. It was a very successful start. They opened in, I believe it was somewhere at the end of November. I can't remember, November or December. Anyway, they served over 10,000 meals the first week. There are times still at this point where weekend reservations are booked out 2 weeks out or more. And as a result of that, there are times when there are 50 plus employees working during the weekend. And as a result, due to that, its extreme popularity, the existing lot unfortunately was substantially underparked. What ended up happening, and I visited the restaurant a few times during this situation where patrons visiting the restaurant actually parked in the fire lanes identified here in the orange. So essentially they would double stack inside the main entrance area. They were actually able to fit 12 vehicles in the main entrance portion here, and then they would park along the fire access islands along outside and then along the edge of the frontage of the building, and then along this curb line here, which effectively would restrict access to a fire vehicle should it need to enter the facility. They also had situations where once all of those areas were full, they were encroaching onto grassed parking areas, as identified here in green, and they also were encroaching into the former, I'm calling it what it's called to be a future pad site area portion of the property. There is a curb cut onto that was historical based on previous uses, as well as some, as you can identify with this black line, previous curbing identifying parking within this area at some point in the past. So that was essentially utilized. And when all of those areas were full, and the patrons ended up overflowing into the Price Chopper lot and actually walking up and around Lewis Street to get to the building for access to the restaurant. And a lot of the reasoning behind that, and this has been reviewed based on discussions with the owner and so on, is the restaurant is generating more individual trips than anticipated. In other words, more people are accessing the restaurant individually than as family groups. And in fact, it was interesting because I had just heard information from the developer recently that during Mother's Day, it was one of the highest amount of occupancies for the restaurant. However, they did not have a parking situation because the majority of the attendees during Mother's Day all came in groups from their vehicles, so they didn't have a parking issue that day. So it's more use by individual trips, people coming from out of town or whatever, and it's causing these situations. Now, to alleviate this hazardous situation, they temporarily installed I'm calling a temporary gravel employee lot in the area of the former parking area that was, historic based on whatever the previous uses had been. We recognize that the process to install that was not appropriately followed in regard to the process to secure such a temporary lot, but at the time the decision was made due to the hazard associated with the security to allow access by fire apparatus, that the lot was installed for that. Additionally, after that, there was a negotiation with the owners of the Price Chopper Plaza to lease spaces right now. And I believe, if I understand correctly, 50 spaces have been leased from them specifically for employee use. So the employees will be parking in the Price Chopper lot. And again, the majority of the remainder of this will be for all of the patrons of the restaurant. And again, we recognize that it is located inside the upland review area. There was an apology letter that was submitted to the Conservation Commission, and I have been in the process of coordinating with this to get this plan put together and in front of you so that we can alleviate the conditions of the nonconformity. Alleviate the temporary lot violation, I guess what we would say, and to get something that is approved and permanent to solve these situations. This is what is being currently proposed for this. It is a parking lot extension that will reconstruct the south portion of the existing lot. So in fact, let me go back one here. So here's the north is in this direction. This is the rear, or I should say the south side of the restaurant proper, the handicap parking. This is the existing main portion of the property, and this is the auxiliary portion of the existing parking. That will be essentially 39 spaces will be removed and then reconstructed as shown here, which will add an additional 124 spaces, which will ultimately total parking of 163 spaces for the property. The design of the parking is such to follow the requirements of section 611C, which allows for reduced length parking from a standard 9x18 space to 9x16, allowing a 3-foot overhang over top of a landscaped area. And in this case, we are utilizing a 7-foot width grassed strip in addition to the exterior hammerheads, the exterior portions of the grassed islands. And this allows the effective use of the area for maximum parking potential, but at the same time satisfying the requirements of the 10% interior landscaping requirement. The site is reasonably flat, however, to again further emphasize the importance of providing as much of the parking to satisfy the demand for the parking requirement for this. There is going to be a proposed wall installed, modular block wall that will wrap around, identified here in orange, that will wrap around the boundary of the property in order to allow for accurate installation of the parking as shown. Drainage, and again, we haven't designed any of this yet because we wanted to come to speak to the commission about it, but we are proposing some type of drainage structure of somewhere in the center of the site that would essentially collect all of the sheet flow, and then satisfy the requirements of the water quality manual. I've spoken to the town engineer about this. He thinks it's a reasonable path forward because although the town does not have a strict stormwater management plan, they do follow the MS4 guidelines, which does stipulate impervious coverages and treatment of such water. I also note that we are proposing a new right-in, right-out curb cut, approximately 250 feet south of the existing curb cut. This has been reviewed verbally with Connecticut DOT. We do not have any formal approval of this yet because they usually don't issue any of that until we have some type of site application in front of the commission, but they were amenable to this. They did not indicate that it would be frowned upon. The next part is the discussion with regard to section 6.10.4 and the identification here, just so you're clear. So the 35-foot building line is identified by this dashed line right here. So we're specifically discussing the component of the pavement within this front section. So for regulation 610.4 for the Berlin Turnpike, I won't rehash it because I know that you've been coordinating with this on multiple different properties, the pavement within 35 front yard. Now, with relation to this property in general, for the Connecticut General Statutes, Chapter 124 for zoning under Section 8.2 regulations, I'm not going to read through it. Essentially, that statute identifies that the town has the ability to make its own zoning standards. Subsection D discusses that the zoning regulations adopted pursuant to subsection A of the section shall not, and then subsection 4A discusses non-conforming uses. So the zoning regulations shall not prohibit the continuance of any non-conforming use, building or structure existing at the time of the adoption of such regulations. B, require a special permit or special exceptions for any such continuous. And C, and the one that I'd like to focus on this evening, is the provide for the termination of any non-conforming use solely as a result of non-use for a specified period of time without regard to the intent of the property owner to maintain that use. I'm going to switch now. So the portion of the property that's being discussed is the south portion here, where you can see some of the existing historic curb lines identifying where the former parking lot used to be. Please bear with me on this one. These are going to be very difficult to see. And in fact, I think Paul might actually have some clearer photos in this case. So these are the 1965 aerials, which are available on the Yukon Magic mapping site, and identifies, so this used to be the former Mortenson's farm property. There are some buildings and structures and pavement areas to the north where the existing restaurant is, and then also to the south, there are some structures, and more particularly, and what I'd like to focus on, the fact that there is access onto the Berlin Turnpike via pavement to access these structures through the front yard setback. That was essentially the non-conforming use. As we move through the years, and Paul has a few more dates of aerials, although the actual use itself is no longer there, whether it was a grassed area or whether it was basically unutilized use, the use specifically did not change. They didn't abandon the use to transfer to a different use. This is actually, and then the proposed, these were the Bertucci's plans that were approved in October of 1992. This area here would be the future Bertucci's parking lot, which is now currently the existing lot. And then this is a potential future pad site, which identifies basically the boundary of the parking area extending through that. I understand that this was never developed, but again, what I'm reiterating is the fact that that existing non-conforming use was never abandoned. And as a result of that, there is still the ability for them to essentially pursue the use of parking within the 6-10-4 portion that has been discussed earlier. The other thing I'd like to mention with regard to this application specifically, which I thought was interesting, is that the section 6-10-4 discussing the front yard setback and green space was in place at the time that this site plan application went in front of the commission, and it was not mentioned during any of the discussions associated with the approval for this. And there was also a note that the ZEO at the time had reviewed the design associated with this, and it satisfied all of the requirements associated with the regulations at the time, which I thought was interesting because this specific issue was never mentioned. So there is a precedent that has already been set with regard to parking within this area for this site specifically. Therefore, as a result, and what we would like the discussion on from the commission is, we would like to continue to utilize the 35-foot front yard for the parking so that we can move forward with a site plan application for this. And as a result, that's essentially this. I'd love to get the next, any opinions from the commission and thoughts on the design itself, and then thoughts in particular on whether or not we can utilize the front yard portion for the parking. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So again, I think it's in the staff report I provided, the 8-2, the whole section for you to take a look at as well. There's also, again, the reason why they're here tonight is that section, I think it's 813A when talking about non-conforming, 813A2. The burden of proof on what's there is on the applicant to actually show that the non-conformity was there. Now, yes, through the historic aerials, there has been some changing of uses. The aerials don't illuminate as much as I hope they would have as far as what really was there. I'm gonna put those up. Stop sharing. So for your reference, I think the 1934 one closed, but then again, I think I might have it open. So this is in 1951. You can kind of see the site. This was pre a lot of that other development, of course, pre when they came in for that application that Mr. Vaca did note about that whole extension of the front yard, parking, phase 1, phase 2, and how it was considered. In the staff report, specifically on that one, the TPZ, when they did make their decision, did very specifically say that this is for phase 1 only, that phase 2 would have to come back to another site plan. So that's kind of the approval as far as that goes. Then at that time, the TPZ didn't approve that parking. They may have reviewed it. Then again, we don't know all the history of that. That's discussions of the past. None of us were there as far as what was established. So you have in 1951, you can kind of see it was the Mortensen's combination. You had, I believe this was the gas station on site previously, and this is the whole property that we're talking about. So in 1970, you can see this is where the Bertucci's building is located now. You can kind of make out where Main Street is coming in. In 1970, this water course was clearly defined. So you can actually, it really does show in, at least in the 70s. Again, you do see a curb cut and some pavement in front of it, but what is happening in this area is not as determinate. Now, as far as staff looking at it, we can see is, yes, there was something there in the past, but was it the whole thing? It doesn't appear that, you know, based on these aerials, that it was the complete area. So I think that's the kind of discussion for the commission on whether you see this as enough information that's been presented to say, yes, your nonconformity has been proven either per the applicant's request within the entirety of the 35-foot front yard setback area, or is it a portion of it? Again, this is being a stickler with the regulations, but this is something that has come up multiple times in the town. And the town more recently has been, you know, reviewing this and making sure that this is complied with. So from the staff point of view, again, it's a pre-application. That's why it's in front of you. But what does the commission see? Because at the end of the day, it'll be the commission's determination, not staff's determination on whether that burden of the applicant has been met to show that the nonconformity existed, wasn't extinguished, which that site plan, again, as they've kind of put onto the record, does show, okay, at least at that time, there was intent. At least when that phase 1 and phase 2 thing goes, they did want to expand this sometime in the future for a pad site. But what was approved, what wasn't approved, what was installed, again, that phase 2 was not approved, it wasn't installed, it was kind of more of a, for the commission's information, showing something future on the property. We do that kind of now with phase 1, phase 2 things. We haven't seen as many. Those are things that I typically like would be removed off of a plan saying future use. Well, if it wasn't approved as part of the commission, the site plan should be narrowed down to what's actually approved. And they did that during the application, during the condition, specifically approved phase 1, not phase 2. So again, it's the commission to look at this and say, does this meet the burden for proving that that nonconformity existed in that area?
Thank you. Commissioner Nafis.
Yeah, actually, I was on the Conservation Commission when this came in, 1992, something like that. And yeah, there was never an approval. As far as the Conservation Commission was concerned, I believe that they were grading that area maybe for the future building and parking that they show on here. That I know the building itself was never approved, and I don't know what TPZ did with it, quite honestly. But one of the things this 35-foot baseline from the property line, and that works really well if you have 300-400 feet that you're dealing with. This looks to me like it's about a 200 foot depth in that.
Right.
So, I mean, we can see just where that line is, how many parking spaces would be lost if we had to adhere to that. And I don't know about all these procedural things. I'll leave that up to you guys, but I think this would be a good plan for this site. Got a business that's doing very well there. And it just kind of extends what we have there now. So that's my feeling in terms of the site plan they have.
Thank you. Commissioner Fox.
Frank, do you want to reshare yours so you have the site plan?
Questions I have to say right now. I'll hold them for later.
Commissioner Harpy.
In reading the report from the town planner, we noted that you violated the wetlands. You're aware of that?
Yes,
When did-
we are aware of that.
Okay, so will you be filing an application with the other commission?
Yes, as I was actually looking at the timeframes, if the commission is favorable to what is being proposed, to what we would like to do, I'd like to get in as soon as obviously not the next commission meeting, but probably submission for the second is what we would like to do.
Can you share with us off the cuff how you'll explain you'll be able to protect that in the future or not protect it?
Protect the
Wetlands area?
wetland area. So with the installation of the wall, in fact, we're actually in the process of doing this in a project that we're working on right now in New Britain. Because the wall is, well, right, to protect the wetlands, essentially, and let me go back to the drainage. Give me 1 second. All right, so the grading of the site, yes, we'll be fighting grade for a portion of this. However, with the results of the wall being installed, essentially, we're going to be pulling all, maybe able to draw, give me a second here. There we go. We're essentially going to be pulling all grades back, not substantially, but essentially all of the area that essentially would discharge in the direction of the wetland was actually going to come in this direction to be treated, stored and treated and conveyed into the existing storm system. It's kind of hard to see, but this is the farthest basin over. This runs in this direction and will discard, will, oh, I'm sorry, give me 1 second. That's not what I intended to do. Sorry about that. All right. Any of the drainage associated with this, I've coordinated this with the town engineer. Any of the additional detention that would be required to treat any of the additional, to reduce the peak and treat any of the water quality associated with that will essentially be connected into this current basin. The design will be self-sufficient in that it will correct all of the water quality and detention for that specific parcel, but will be conveyed into this drainage system, which ultimately connects over to the original designed detention basin associated with the development. So we're not going to increase any of the flows to the detention. It will ultimately release as if this is currently existing, what's going on right now. So any of the additional stormwater or anything associated with that will be directed away from the existing wetland in this area. As far as the construction of the wall is concerned, the project I mentioned in New Britain, because of the steepness of the slope and because of the height, and the height of the nut wall is not substantial. I think at the highest point, it's going to be about 11 feet, but it tapers off from there. The wall itself will be basically installed in steps. So basically they're going to over excavate bit behind the wall to install the wall almost below grade. And then as the wall gets built, is basically going to be installed essentially along the face to prevent any discharge into the wetland area, given the fact that the slope is as steep as it is. So we are working on a project right now to address that, to ensure that there isn't any discharge towards the wetland area. So we're going to basically keep everything on the close side of the wall towards the parking area to prevent any future discharge in the direction of the wetland.
You have, what, 50 spots that you negotiated with the grocery store? Is that correct?
I believe it's 50 spots. 50, yes.
Okay. Is there any consideration for doing more of that activity to reduce so much going on at your site, just as a general question?
Additional,
Well,
lease,
you mentioned 163 parking locations.
yes.
Never mind. It doesn't really deal with regulations, so it's just going to get your opinion on something, that's all. In terms of general. I'm done, thank you.
Commissioner Minor has his hand raised as well.
Commissioner Minor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to confirm, you said you were gonna have a chamber system in the new section that would go downstream into the existing. Is that correct?
That is what we are currently
Proposed.
investigating. Yeah, that's what we're looking at. We don't have the final design yet. And if it turns out that either Chris Zibidio or the design itself does not function effectively or creates too additional discharge, we may potentially propose an alternative to that. But regardless of what will happen, it will be treated on site, and whatever the discharge point we will design it so that it will not increase any of the peaks associated with what was previously there.
Okay, and one quick follow-up for Paul. You had mentioned that the previous was a phase one approved, phase two proposed, and nothing more than that. Because I vaguely remember years ago, a pad site available sign on the property for an extended number of years, and I'm just trying to remember if that was approved or proposed.
Yep, so I can answer that. It was proposed to the level of just shown on the site plan. On that site plan, again, the grading that's shown, that again, it's in your packet as well. You can see that there's some minor grading that was proposed in this area, but it didn't actually develop out the whole plan for this section for the phase two. And again, there was that very specific approval from the TPZ that said this is only for phase one. So I think it was shown as, again, it shows intent of the owner that they did want to develop out this area and fill it in with parking and work on a pad site. And I think it's that a lot of times you'll see advertisements before even something gets sold. We've seen that on other lots in town right now where people are giving us calls. They're part of another one and they're like, well, they're gonna subdivide it out. Okay, that's the concept. And they want to know that there's someone, on the hook. As far as a potential future buyer or occupant. But a lot of the time, those for sale, for lease, for offer signs come even before a site plan approval.
Okay.
If I could, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
If I could clarify, and I apologize if I didn't make this clear. So the reason why, and I also apologize if it wasn't presented well in the project narrative. I'm discussing this particular future development as a clarification of essentially the direction, or I should say, how the proposed parking aligns with the existing parking. Because there was no future two actually developed, it's one of those where the nonconformity basically falls back to whatever the previous non-conforming use was. In this case it would have been the Mortenson's development. So because they did not abandon that, and because it went from the Mortenson's development to essentially nothing, because it was not abandoned, that's essentially the non-conforming use that still remains, because no development actually occurred on the parcel. I just want to make sure that was clear.
Okay, thank you for providing that clarification. That does make a little more sense. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Minor. Commissioner Hoffman, do you have any questions? Commissioner Wakoma? Commissioner Pasquarelli? I got a couple of questions here. Number one, I remember that site when Mortenson's was up there and there was a Shell gas station right next to it. State bought that site, put in 291, and they knocked everything down. And they resold the property after 291 got canceled. I don't remember the gas station having parking all the way over to the wetlands to the left. Okay. The thing that concerns me here is the 35-foot buffer. We don't really want to start waiving that, in my opinion. Commission can do what they want, but I'm just saying, in my opinion, I don't think it's a good idea to start waiving that. I do understand you have a parking problem, employees and stuff. I got two suggestions if you're interested, and it's only just, whatever you want to do. The DOT has got a commercial, parking lot across the street. And in the past, when the restaurant down by Lowe's, they got permission to have their customers park there and get shipped back and forth with a van. Okay, there may be another option for you, and that lot is cambered and it's recorded. The other thing is that you might be able to also talk to Zen Leaf there, because they don't. Every time I go by, I don't see that many cars. Or you may be able to have some of your employees parked there.
Okay.
It's only a thought, but like I said, I grew up in this town and I remember quite a bit about this area here. And the Mortensons, when they had it, if I'm not mistaken, their stores were on the bottom and they lived up on the top. All right. It was Elmer and Bruce and a couple of the kids here. So I don't like the idea personally. The commission can do what they want, but I don't like the idea of waiving the 35-foot frontage. Okay, we just had one with Olympia Diner, and we wouldn't do that there. And although it is a hodgepodge all the way up and down the turnpike, I'll tell you that right now. we'd like, by adding more non-conforming lots, doesn't help our situation any. Just my opinion. Okay? Paul?
Yep, and I think kind of, again, the question for the commission is what level of information would you like to see to prove that nonconformity? Again, what's there? In looking at it, we can see at least for part of it, there was a curb out there that exists on site right now. It's actually currently within the DOT right of way. But it's that tracing back the aerials, trying to establish what was there. And again, nonconformities are a property right, but they can't be increased without action by, that would be a variance type of action saying that there's something unique about this lot compared to the others with the wetlands behind it, less depth. That's a variance process. Or it's the process of reviewing the regulations and writing regulations for the Berlin Turnpike for this 35 front foot. That's something that, was brought up in the previous pre-application. When we were talking about this 35 is without understanding to rewrite the regulation is a big task. And that's a task that likely will have to be, staff TPZ in that direction. We were hoping for, again, the funding is locked up right now as far as the raise grant that was proposed to really look at what's the future of the turnpike. They were the DOT and actually CROG was specifically looking at pedestrian future mobility. And that would have given us a better picture of what the future of the turnpike could look like so we could modify that regulation to make sense for that future. We don't have that yet. So right now we're at this point of we have this 35 foot. It's established for basically how it looks, property values, and for potential future connection issues. And that's the thing. It's the main thing for me about anything within front yards is the connection issues. While this site might be slightly different with the parking already in the front, zoning regulations aren't as flexible in saying, okay, yes, you can do it in this case, in that case, unless that's codified. Right now, it's just a straight prohibition. So it's kind of a black and white item other than proving what's existing there and what the nonconformity that the owner had. So that's my kind of question for the commission to give the applicant that information of what level of detail do you need to see as far as to prove that nonconformity. You have local knowledge that I don't have as well, that you can rely on to say, yep, no, I was there. I know that curb cut went from here to here, as you noticed, like maybe it didn't go all the way to the end to where the gas station was, didn't go all the way to the wetlands. But for me, it's narrowly defining that existing nonconformity that can be provable.
Commissioner Minor has his hand raised again.
Commissioner Minor?
Just one quick follow-up, Mr. Chair. Could you clarify what your reduction would be if you were to consider that 35-foot setback, what you'd be able to gain excluding that?
If I can confirm the question, is it, if I can reiterate the question and make sure I understand it, are you saying what would be the reduction in the parking?
Correct.
Okay, I understand.
If you were to consider that 35-foot setback in the proposed area.
Right. I did not outright do the math for it, but and I was going to mention this when Commissioner Nafis had brought it up, and if I can draw on here what I'll basically identify, it's not simply a matter of, well, we're going to eliminate this parking and because that's all that's really there. The bigger issue is in order to satisfy the fire department in order to allow for access to all the vehicles in the parking area. If the 35-foot is identified here, that would essentially be the start of the parking. So you would essentially have your 16-foot lot, then your 24-foot, then your 16, then your, and obviously I don't have the scale for this, but it's not just simply a matter of just the frontage parking. It's essentially, we would most likely ultimately lose probably 2 full parking bays. In this case would be probably anywhere in the neighborhood of 35 to 40 spaces, which again, I don't have a good way to quantify the actual number that would be required in this case. It's just that I know that as the popularity. And in fact, one of the comments that I had when I was discussing with Dorian, the owner, is that, you know, summer hasn't really kicked into full swing yet. They've just started opening the patio full enclosures. And as it becomes more and more popular, especially during the summer, there's no telling how many people will be coming to visit, and especially based on the number of individual car trips that will be anticipated. So we're aiming for the largest number that we could achieve. It's the first time I've actually tried to maximize the parking. Usually I try to minimize it when I'm doing my designs. But in this case, I think it's warranted, and I think it would be a major loss in the number that would be ultimately lost if we were to maintain the 35-foot buffer.
Okay, just in following with the chair's earlier comments, you know, we have had recent consideration with the 35-foot setback rule on another property down the turnpike a little further. And I do understand your, you know, request to maximize the parking, but I'm just trying to see if there's something in the middle here that would gain you some, maybe not all of which you were looking for, but that might be able to quantify a little bit easier for us to say, yes, let's consider it this way versus an outright no.
Understood. If I may, and I have not spoken to the developer or the owner on this, so I cannot commit to any of this, but one of the things I have been thinking about is there the potential for us to potentially have some type of either pervious pavement or some type of product that could basically, it would be kind of the meeting in the middle, where if the specific requirement is for the pavement concern, if we were to propose some type of potential pavement surface or something that would allow us to maintain the parking requirement while at the same time being on the more environmental friendly type of side. I don't know the cost for that. And I have not looked at any of the analysis, but I guess I would request of the commission their opinion as to if that would be a potential, you know, compromise solution if possible.
Okay,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
just one follow-up and I'm done, is again, going back to Croc's consideration, DOT's considerations of the turnpike and losing that 35-foot setback on any properties would, I think, hamper any efforts that they may have moving forward. So that would be my only concern. But again, I understand maximizing the parking. I don't know if I can get past that, but thank you though. I appreciate it.
I do have one other quick thing. When you do come back in,
Mhm.
where are you gonna put all your snow?
So we don't have the landscaping placed yet for this. I do, and this as contrary to what most people would think with regard to this, some of the new treatment structures that are being designed, in other words, the water quality structures that we're being proposed, they actually work quite well as a way to store your snow. It sounds counterintuitive because you're placing all of your snow in your water quality area. Because of the void space and because of the design of the treatment structure itself, which I'm not going to get into the specifics of it, they actually maintain like an ambient temperature that's higher than usually outside temperature. So a lot of times snow would get stored there and would melt faster than it would in other areas. So the water quality structure is actually an option for that placement. We don't have them placed yet, but they have the ability to be placed in multiple different locations or various locations. So we can utilize them as potential snow storage areas. Yes, we do recognize that we're using as absolute maximum possible. So it is one of the components that we are going to investigate for the site plan application.
I just would not like to see it dumped over the back.
Yes, I understand that.
Just, Paul, before you got here, we had, in front of O'Reilly's, we had the same issue. And I can't remember what we
I think
recommended.
they did some pervious pavers out front.
Pervious
is what
pavers. That may
the
be an
commission
option
did
for you
allow.
there.
Okay.
You know,
I think they also discussed the potential of doing like the grass block parking, where
right.
you put down the grid and you fill it and it's grass. But I think they eventually settled on that.
That may be something to look at. You might want to work with Eric on that.
Mhm.
I remember O'Reilly, we did that. We did within the 35-foot buffer.
I believe they did, yes.
Do you let people self-park there, or is that like for, I don't know, for valet or something? Like, if it's not, you just let people park on the grass? Is it sort of how
I
it
mean,
works?
like the grass block overflow, like at West Farms Mall, all that grass there, if you go out there, there's like blocks in there, and it's, yeah, in the winter when it used to be that busy,
Yeah,
they either store their snow there or open it up for parking.
The
Yeah,
product,
self-parking.
the product that Eric's referring to at West Farms is called grass pave. It's basically it's a structure that's designed where you actually drive on the structure itself, but the grass actually grows up through it. The biggest issue with that, and why I'm not overly favorable to it, it is extremely difficult to plow in the winter, because as soon as you hit one of them, you could tear the entire thing up. So it's usable, but it is not intended to be used as a season, especially in New England.
My concern.
Yes, Commissioner Herpy.
One other question of the gentleman. Just as a side information for the commission, how do you plan, say this all gets approved, how do you plan to control the traffic while you're doing the construction or reconstruction of the parking lot?
That is a good question. It has not been pursued yet, but I'm quite sure that I would imagine a traffic maintenance plan would have to be secured as part of the site plan application for that, because of these concerns. Obviously, the owner is not going to want to prevent people from accessing the area. So most likely would be phased in some type of manner, but we have not given it very much thought yet. But it's something that will have to be part of the plan.
Well, I think we can agree that great success also brings great problems. For sure.
Any other questions, commissioners?
Yep. So again, the thing that, again, it's the structure of this regulation, just saying no pavement shall be placed within there. And I know, have looked at this in the past, and those options of doing, that might be a regulation change to look at, but that's like looking at the whole regulation and saying where is this applicable? How does this work? Looking at the Berlin Turnpike. But I think, again, my main question for the commission, I think for them to come out of this is, what do you see as what level of information will get to the point that you are confident that that nonconformity was where they're proposing it to be?
Because either through their plans or their narrative, they're gonna have to, satisfy you guys of that potential issue.
Yeah, and I don't mean to be too much of a stickler, as I tend to be with zoning regulations. However, it is one of those things where likely in the future, does this need to change? Yeah, I think there's something that could be done, but is it something that we have the level of information and analysis to change at this moment? I don't think we do.
No.
And it's a larger concept. It's come up multiple times. As I said, like, these are, whether they're variance questions, whether they're questions about proving the nonconformity, but from staff's point of view of looking at this and doing the analysis on anything we would write up as a report, it's what has been presented to prove that nonconformity. And it might be looking for historic photos. There might be some in towns. Luckily, Mortenson's was pretty popular. It was an institution in town, but as I said, the commission can also rely on their information as well and your own history in the town to know how that was kind of developed out. But it should be on the record about, what was there as the nonconformity. And again, it's not necessarily this application I'm always concerned about. It's the next application,
Right.
that's saying, okay, yes, pervious pavers will work for you on this site. Okay, well, the next person comes in and says, okay, yeah, pervious pavers work for me on this site. And they might have a completely, a site that they're completely redeveloping where they have that 300, 400 foot deep lot where they have the room to do that, but they might try to be maximizing the amount in the front. Again, that would be, there's unfortunately, the way this is written, there's not that much flexibility. There's basically, when you do alter your floor space, they encourage adding green space to the front. So the goal of this regulation has always been to increase the amount of green space in that 35 foot, but considering too that the owner, if they've asserted their pre-existing nonconformity, Again, nonconformities are a property right.
Commissioner Minor has his hand raised again.
Sorry,
Commissioner Minor has his hand raised again.
Chris?
Yeah, just to go back, I mean, I do, vividly recall the curb cuts existing all the way back. I don't remember the beginning, but those curb cuts have existed for as long as I can remember. So just there's that.
Okay, thank you.
Can I request a clarification? So, well, we had proposed the second entrance. How does the requirement handle the second entrance? The reason why I'm asking is if there is ever, because it's still a viable pad site, and my understanding would be that, to allow that to be a viable pad site, you would need that separate entrance. If this is going to prevent, I would say, if the requirement for 610-4 prevents the pavement and we cannot put the entrance in, it would essentially eliminate the possibility for that to be a viable pad site. I'm just making that statement because I'm just trying to understand how, I mean, I know for I can't remember the tool center, I can't remember the name,
What?
O'Reilly's. For O'Reilly's, I know that there is still an access to the property through the front yard. Is there a stipulation that says as long as you have one access, you can still enter through that 35-foot? Like how do you get to whatever your use is?
Yep, so the access points have always been permitted within that 35, because that's you can't do it without it. So all access points to the Berlin Turnpike are within that 35 feet. Again, that's looking at the regulation. It does say no pavement. The way that I think it's been interpreted is, yes, the access is the access. Those are just a matter of fact for any development. Otherwise, you wouldn't have any access to the Berlin Turnpike. So that's obviously
Right.
gonna
No,
be intent. So yeah, I
understand.
think the curb cut itself isn't necessarily an issue. That's under DOT control about how many curb
It's under
cuts.
DOT control. You have to
Yep.
get
Right.
to OSA.
Yes.
Yeah, and for us, it's the matter of, it's reasonable access to the site. And I could probably dig into the regulations. There's probably something that even enables that. 610 doesn't go directly into that nitty gritty detail about the access, but accesses have always been permitted.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay,
So essentially it would be to prove that the nonconformity that we are showing does not, what we are proposing is we are not exceeding what the nonconformity historically was. And if I can prove that, we have a much more viable potential application. Okay.
The only other option would be to go for ZBA as well. I mean, just.
Okay, I'm just not exactly sure what the next step would be. Do we need to prove it more? Is that what you need from us?
From staff's point of view, for me to say, yeah, again, it's a commission decision on that one. From staff's point of view, it's what has been shown. There was something there. Again, they've showed it on the maps that there's an existing curb there. That curb is out in the DOT right of way. What was and wasn't abandoned is always a question. You do have that site plan that showed that there was intent of the site, that the owners always wanted to develop this part of the site. So it would be hard to say that, no, it was completely abandoned. And that the intent was to say, no, this will just return to green space and that's how we want it forever. But as far as how much was out in the front is the biggest question. So it's proving that, and, I would recommend seeing if you can find some photos of the Berlin Turnpike in that area, because I think that'll be the most illuminating for the commission.
what's the commission's pleasure?
I think we should
I'm
give
fine
them
with
an
that.
opportunity to collect the information.
Yeah.
Keep our minds open.
If we were to provide accurate information as part of the application package to move forward, would that be acceptable to commission if we were to have at least some type of verifiable evidence with the submission to the commission? Is that acceptable?
Yeah,
I think so.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is just a pre-application. He's just looking for the feedback so he can move forward.
Yeah, no, right.
Yep. So you can have this discussion now and not at the application.
I think I have all the information I need. Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Glad to see your restaurant's doing well.
You got the list here, Jay?
Yes.
It's it's Bob Teller. It's Bob Teller.
Yes, Bob.
Great participation in
No.
Nope, but actually,
When the application submitted.
But it's,
When they had the public hearing.
yeah. And it's on the agenda, so we're not talking about it.
okay, what's next on the agenda here? All right. Next is TPZ 25-9, so you can go into that one. Oh, no, sorry, TPZ 25-8. We just did that.
We got crazy.
So petition, TPZ 25-8, special permit, section 3.17.8 for a motor vehicle sales use, construction vehicles at 15 Holmes Road, AKA 15 to 19 Holmes Road, in the I industrial zone. Owner Stam LLC, applicant Bituminous Equipment LLC. Contact Alicia Comer, application received 4/23, 65 days to open public hearing by 6/27/2025.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Alicia Comer for 15 Holmes Road.
Robert Comer for 15 Holmes Road.
Yep, and before you jump in, before you get into it, I just wanted to just remind the commission that, so this is, again, there's some questions on the site as far as past site plans. That's why they're in front of you tonight. Past practice has been typically, we kind of jump right into the public hearing on these ones that are kind of more minor in nature. However, there are some questions. Again, the public hearing on this will be held at the next meeting. This is to get some information from the commission about this the previous site plan, what needs to be done on site, and to kind of move forward so that the applicant can hopefully do the presentation during the public hearing and maybe resolve it that night as well. So if you, not to steal your thunder, but I figure I'd give that just for a clarification for the commission that tonight, it's just a regular meeting. And then a public hearing will be at the next meeting.
Would I be able to give some insight to what we do and the
Oh,
reason
absolutely.
for,
Right now,
okay,
it's
that's
just
okay
your
for now. I
presentation.
didn't know
Do
if
your
we weren't
presentation.
going to talk about it next time.
The floor is yours.
Wonderful. So thank you for being here tonight. So Bituminous Equipment LLC, we are considered a dealer for a company called ED Etnier and Company out of Illinois, and we cover southern New England. And we've been doing this since 2022. And they're a manufacturing construction equipment company who also create or make the parts for these construction equipment and trailers as well. We currently sell the parts, and we're looking to add on that repair and the selling of the new construction equipment and trailers. So the lead time on these vehicles are a year or more. So this is not something that we're going to have as far as inventory on site. Our average or our goal is to have about maybe 1 to 5 equipment sales per year. So not very much. And we're looking to have the repair and selling portion of this to become a dealership with the DMV, because we now have the capacity to hold the minimum amount of vehicles indoors per the DMV's regulations to become a dealership. So currently, as you know, we're zoned as a construction yard in which Robert and I also rent a space for a separate business for a construction business. So we foresee there being no change as we are not changing the building whatsoever. We're not changing traffic or the amount of customers that come in or out. And we don't feel that this is going to impact the community any more than we do already. So we're hoping that we can have your blessing and move forward with this.
Any questions, commissioners?
So what are we actually going to be giving you information on?
Yep.
What are you looking for?
So we are looking to become a Connecticut dealer. So we have to become a dealership like a Ford or, some other kind of company, but just not work in that same regard.
Need a special application.
Yeah.
To have a
So
motor
it's-
vehicle dealer.
So they need the auto related use approved by you so I can sign their DMV license for their,
So there's not going to be any change to the building?
Nope.
Okay. No change to parking? You're just going to use what's existing there and just spread vehicles out or indoors?
Yeah, we're just gonna have we have the 2 indoor spaces per the DMV regulations, is we have to have that. And that's all we foresee having at one time. We do have our own construction vehicles that we do have parked out. So in addition to that, if we did have one, we would add that to the mix.
and I believe they're gonna be stored either within the building or behind the building, so they wouldn't be visible.
It's gonna be my next question.
Yeah, we made delineations of in front of the garage bay will be the parking. If we already have 2 vehicles indoors, will be the parking for that next vehicle.
And the site plan is up on the screen. This is a space, the yellow space they're gonna utilize. You see the parking out front along Fen Road, the entrance off of Holmes. And this is gated back here. And then parking of their vehicles that they're gonna be working on and potentially selling is gonna be right here behind this. On the backside in the parking area.
So
One of the things we're looking at is taking the existing site plan and bringing this up to snuff with what the existing site plan is showing, right? You're aware of that? What we're looking for?
Yeah, and that's the discussion we had with them on site, and that's why they're here in front of you tonight, is that if the site plan was all perfectly developed out as it was before, this would have, I think, just gone to a public hearing. I think as long as it's understood what the use is, and I think we'll discuss this in the public hearing too as well, as long as it's understood what the use is, that it is not, transferring over to a full-blown dealership, it is within this space, just understood what the use is. It's one of those where if we could sign off, we likely would. But it is that sales use, and we do have specific requirements or restrictions for sales. So in that area of the site plan, right now, what I can do for you is, don't know if any of you have ever been out on the site. Okay, so this is actually, avert your eyes because I have to go back. There we go. So this is the area in front along Fen Road. On the site plan, this area actually is not a continuous pavement forward. It actually has some cutouts, a little more green space. So that's kind of for the TPZ's consideration of, again, this past site plan, there was a little more green space in the parking lot. We typically require it to be broken up a little bit, not a giant field of parking. That's why it has some, a tree or here or there, kind of our requirements. On the past site plan, it actually had a lot of notes of to be worked out with the planner. The whole landscaping was kind of all right, yes, work with the planner, figure out the berm, figure out how it looks, but at least it was kind of delineated where the parking was. So right now, the parking is it is wide open in the front. There aren't the lights that were shown on the site plan. So this is the kind of consideration for the TPZ of whether, as part of this application, the site is considered. Is this something that the TPZ wants to see some improvements made on the property, or what is your kind of direction? A lot of the times when applications come in, we do look at the past site plan, look for site plan compliance. If we do find something out of compliance, it's normally either fixed or revised. But this is kind of the question for the TPZ, that before I make them go far afield and rework a lot of this area, what is the TPC's consideration of that past site plan to this current use?
Because the past site plan was approved with lighting and like Paul stated, the parking is different.
Yep, and I can actually just run you through, again, this is the front. This is looking at Fen Road. Again, moving around the front, you can see some area is actually granite curbed. Good landscaping in the front of the property. Looking at the same area from the other side. Again, this is the area where it had some previous green areas. Take too many pictures. All right, this is the access that goes around the back. It's currently gated off. That's looking at the whole area from that access. As I noted, good landscaping in the front. There's some parking in the front there as well that's utilized on site. And this is the back yard area. So the area where the applicant is proposing to go is pretty much, you can see on the screen, right in here, right where you see the two vehicles. Another view of it. And this is the interior of the space that they are currently renovating for this purpose. And again, they will have specific signage out front to kind of cordon off their area because it is a construction site. Well, it is a construction or contractor's yard. So to keep their equipment separate.
Yeah, there's other tenants in the building as well.
Yep. And so those are the pictures I have for the site. But again, it's that consideration for the commission of what you would like to see as far as that site plan. Is it so far in the past at this point, it's kind of lighting, safety issues, kind of bring it up to kind of safety compliance? Do you want to see the paving brought back? That's my question for the commission.
Commissioners? Commissioner Fox?
Yeah. I don't have that much to say. As far as I'm concerned, I think it was Eric that said, if you do have equipment for sale, and you're gonna have to have them outside, where would that be, in the back, or would it be on the Fen Road side?
So we would not have inventory. So these are all made to
Don't
order.
have it.
Correct.
Oh, okay. I
So
was
we have a
under the
customer
impression
come
that you
in,
would.
they make an order, and a year from then, we'll get it in. They want to pick it up right away.
Yeah, okay, now, where are the machines, let's say you're ordering a big, a compactor, or, I forget what what I'm looking for. But where would they be, assembled? I mean, would they all, it's like, for instance, when we order a fire equipment, we're gonna look at it and they assemble it over there, and then, so it would just, nothing will be assembled there, it'll just be transported from the manufacturer and sit on the back.
Yeah, there's no, it'll come complete to us.
Okay, sounds good, thank you. And it's, I mean, the pavement there, I mean, it's not gonna be kind of falling through the pavement and
It's not that large, but it's, everything we're gonna be doing will be behind the building or within the building. And things that'll be there are short-term enough that they won't be on display per se. It's
okay, thank you.
final commissioning, put on tires and get it out the door.
Commissioner Harvey?
Just a quick one, Mr. Chairman. In this, the review that staff did on your request, construct and pave the front parking lot as approved. Is that the previous approval a number of years ago? or is it-
1998. So
Yeah.
a
So
few
they
years
have
ago.
Flexibility on. how-
Yeah, 27 years ago. So again, this is something that is technically part of the process. But again, before telling them they have to do all this stuff or having it come up as an issue and bringing this up as an issue during the public hearing and going forward, of them to be able to come forward with you with, again, the ideal of come here for the public hearing. If there's no major objections or no major questions raised, again, staff does not see this as a major application. we would like to see, some of the lighting put in front, some of the site safety features that were there. But again, with it so long between it and with this not necessarily impacting the entirety of the site, what is the commission's pleasure?
Yes, Chairman?
If
It
I
works
could
for you,
just
right?
finish
The way
up.
it is right now, I assume it works for you, working over 28 years for you. So the basic difference is we get a little green space and maybe it looks a little nicer. I don't know what the view is from, it looks like Fen Road's up a little bit higher. They got a nice green area in front of us. Yeah. Seems like a lot of work at this point to me.
Yeah, we've been tenants for 6 years. So Stam LLC is the.
Committee
owner.
visitors,
Not so much.
not so much. The ones that come are probably fairly regular and
Yeah, and they're quick. I have parts for them. They pick it up and they leave and yeah.
those are my opinion.
Commissioner, online Commissioner Minor has his
Commissioner
hand raised.
Minor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a clarification. So DMV is requiring you to be licensed for the sale of what? Titled or certificate of origin trailers, or is this related to the bodies? I'm just trying to clarify why they're recommending you get a dealers and repairs license.
Yes, so one of the things that this company makes is trailers, and when we need to transfer the titles or certificate of origins, we have to be licensed by DMV.
Okay, that's just, I was clarifying that. Okay, I appreciate it. So there's really gonna be no change outside of, basically pre-delivery inspection and out the door it goes. You're not gonna be really holding inventory per se?
No.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Minor. Commissioner Hoffman? Any questions?
No.
Commissioner Wakoma? Commissioner Scarelli?
No, it's very clear. It's.
Yeah. So what do we want to do? I think maybe in my opinion, I think that, it's construction area basically. I don't want to go overboard and put a lot of stuff in there, but like I said, this thing was approved at what, 90?
98.
Outside, I don't see an issue with it.
You go ahead. Yeah, I think it was Commissioner Nafis that was saying,
Commissioner Nathan, any questions?
no, that's in the back. You're not gonna see it from Fen Road.
Right.
And I said, as long as the pavement is decent, you're not gonna have equipment breaking everything up, so I wouldn't want to put too much on them.
I have a quick question. What's in that other part of the building? Where it says here like leased area on the drawing that I have?
There's a landscape company in that 10,000 square feet.
In the 19 homes.
Yeah, then it becomes 19 homes on that last third of the building.
Stam is still, yeah, he's still in the,
What looks to the north.
yeah.
We're up here.
All right, so that area that says zone industrial area, 349,000 square feet, that's not gonna be part of you then?
That's Stam Construction still.
Okay, so all you have is that one little spot?
Yes, and then there's Comer Contracting is in the space indicated with Stam as well.
They have a
There's two
space right
construction
adjacent
companies
to it.
within that space.
Okay.
Partition.
Do you have some?
No. Just clarifying.
All right. Any other questions?
It seems to me that, you let them go ahead and do it. Not make them repave the whole place or anything, because, they're not the primary. And they're not the owner, so just let them go with what they have, but it's not making it's not making much of a change to the existing structure, the building area, nothing like that.
It'd make no sense to repave that. Equipment would be ripping it up anyway, so. All right, Paul.
All right, sounds good. I think there's the direction. So I would recommend just to table it to the next meeting. I have a motion prepared unless there's more comments. Yep, and it sounds
Oh,
like.
sorry.
Wait.
This was 9:20.
Petition
It's the first one, 25 TPZ 25-8, special permit section 3.17.8 for a motor vehicle sales use construction vehicles at 15 Holmes Road, AKA 15 to 19 Holmes Road in the industrial zone. Owner Stam LLC, applicant Bituminous Equipment LLC. Contact Alicia Comer. Application received 4/23/2025, 65 days to open public hearing by 6/27/2025. Move to table this application to 5/28/24 until after the scheduled public hearing.
Yep, we should correct that to 25. I know that's a typo on there.
25.
25, yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Who seconded that motion, please?
Sir?
Who oh, Mike Fox.
I seconded it.
Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
I think you'll see a couple weeks.
But yeah, I know, I would have said yes. Good luck.
Next petition?
Okay, here with the hot rod, guys.
State your name and address for the record.
So I'm Bill Jodas and I live at 32 Green Lane, South Windsor, Connecticut.
William Murphy, Farmington, Connecticut.
You want to read this one in? Yeah, oh, I'm sorry.
All right.
Yeah, that's okay. I got it. Petition TPZ 25-10, special permit section 3.17.8 for a motor vehicle service use, vehicle calibration and aftermarket customization at 40 Commerce Court in the industrial zone. Applicant Matt Pensiero. Contact Bill Jodis, owner Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Application received 4/23/2025, 65 days to open public hearing by 6/27/2025.
So I did share the screen. Is it, good on your end?
I didn't know, didn't come.
What's going on? I will,
No, Paul might be able to help you.
yeah, go ahead. Screen. We'll see. Hard to tell. Yeah, there it is. You got it. All right. Very good. You got it.
Yay, Paul.
So, all right, just want to thank you for giving us this opportunity to do this presentation this evening, and I appreciate everybody volunteering and doing this for the town. So I'm here representing Attention to Detail, Bill Murphy and Matt Pensiero, an application for a special permit, TPZ 25-10 regarding 40 Commerce Court to request special permit, section 3.17.8 for an automotive service, repair, use, vehicle calibration and customization facility. So Attention to Detail's currently purchasing this 4.3 acre property and plans to renovate the existing 24,431 square foot building to meet its needs. Let's see if I can go. Pardon me? The building is 16. Oh, okay. So, yes. The property is zone I industrial. And current property is occupied by Progressive Insurance. So Attention to Detail currently is located in Middletown, Connecticut. They're an automotive service repair business mainly for vehicle calibration, customization, and will require special permit under section 3.17.8 service, sales, repair, rental, or storage of motor vehicles in accordance with section 6.11 and section 5.2 and 5.3 of the zoning regulations effective July 13th, 2019. Some of the information regarding the site plans is as follows. I'll just run through some of the particulars. The lot area in the zone is 20,000 square foot minimum that's required, and we have 187,933 square feet. The minimum frontage requirement on Commerce Court is 70 feet, and we have 449 feet 7 inches. The minimum front yard requirement is 25 feet on Commerce Court, and we have 78 feet 10 inches. The side yard requirement is 25 feet, and the minimum we have is 107 feet 4 inches. The building height requirement allows 3 stories and to be 45 feet tall. We're only 1 story and 21 foot 4 inches tall. Total parking spaces required for this building is 97, and we have 114 spaces. So the building fully complies with all the requirements of the special permit, and we're not asking for any variances. The renovation that we're gonna do inside the building is very minimal because the original use was similar to attention to details requirements. See, back in 2005, when this building was built under the original permit, the building had overhead doors on the north, east, and west sides, had 11 vehicle inspection bays, which is very similar to attention to details requirements. Progressive renovated the building in 2019, and the overhead doors are filled in, and the building is now used for office space. But so today, attention to detail will again require overhead doors on the northeast and west sides of the building, and they require a total of 13 vehicle bays. So attention to detail performs computer analysis, calibration adjustments, auto safety systems such as radar, guided cruise control, blind spot detection, automatic braking systems, lane departure warning systems. They also install leather seating, ladder racks, van shelving, safety lighting, and a myriad of other safety products. So they don't do any auto body work. They don't do any brake repairs, no oil changes, no engine repairs, or any other mechanics work. And their hours are 8 to 9, Monday through Friday, or 8 to 6, Monday through Friday. Saturday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So the only changes to the building footprint on the exterior, there's a outdoor canopy right here. Run the cursor. We're going to take that down. And that's on the west side of the building. And we're going to just add overhead doors back into the building. The site lighting is all existing. We're not changing any of it. We're not changing any of the building colors. It's currently varying shades of light gray. We're not changing the landscaping. There's a detention basin on the south side of the property right here. And that's also designated as a wetlands area. There's wetlands over on this west side. There's wetlands on the north side. But we're not in any of the wetlands. We're only in the 100-foot upland review area. So, so we meet all the town of Newington Inland Wetland Commission requirements as well. Sites in accordance with all the town of Newington Engineering Department requirements. So for attention to detail, I mean, for the town, it's a great use of the property. It's a win-win. It'll add several jobs in the future. Town will gain tax revenue, but not add any burden to the school system. Won't be any large truck traffic, no heavy manufacturing, no large amounts of sound escaping the facility, no multiple tractor trailers left idling, no outside production, just only cars and delivery vans. But because the attention to detail performs adjustments, that's the key word, to vehicles, they require a DMV repairs license. So once we have your approval for the special permit, this will allow attention to detail to apply for the DMV repairs license. So we meet all the requirements, all the town requirements. We just request your approval for the special permit.
Yeah, so from staff, there's a couple, and actually, if you have it, do you have the, otherwise we can bring them up. The elevations.
Let's see if I can bring this up.
Yeah, again, from a staff point of view, if a DMV license wasn't required, we'd probably just work with them. It'd be pretty simple and straightforward. There is only one particular question on this property that I pretty much have is staff's reading of the overhead door regulation. This has come up in past applications. Staff's reading of the overhead door, again, it says the front side of the building. So no overhead doors are permitted in front of the building. But on this one, they're looking to put in, again, those large bays on that one. This is the most unusual corner lot ever because it has a huge distance between this and Fen Road. If this was on Fen Road, I think that would apply. I think that definition or that way it was specifically written on the front side of the building. While this one is a side of the building, it's so far away, it's not visually impactful. Staff would view this one as the side of the building, not the front. no issues with overhead doors. There was one put in the past, there wasn't a lot of them. It was filled in, so I think it's pretty straightforward, but I would like to get the commission's reading on that. So that's my request for the commission. And then also any other questions you have about the use, again, this is scheduled for public hearing, it's all timing when you go to get these notices in. It requires, 4 weeks pretty much before preparing and 3 weeks before you have to get it to the newspaper to actually get it out in the paper. So this is the opportunity, if you would like to see anything presented at the public hearing, if you have any questions. Again, it's pretty straightforward, and I think the commission's, looking at the future of this property as they presented it, it's not a heavy auto body shop. Then again, in this area, that might not be an issue either. In the long run, this is an industrial area, but this is an industrial area that, not far away from Holmes Road, which is again, a contractor's yard on that one. But this one has been developed again at I would say this building is a well-built building. It looks good. A lot of the buildings look good over in that area. I think they'll continue with that tradition with this use. But again, what are your questions, considerations, and staff views? This is the side of the building, but would like the commission to opine.
Thank you. Commissioner
I agree with
Nathan.
staff. I think that side is well away from the Penn Road. Nobody's gonna see it. That looks like the front of the road. The only question I have, what do you do with all the parking?
Oh,
Do you have
there's,
that many employees or these cars coming in and out or?
yeah, they'll store cars in the back area overnight. And it's a fenced in area. It's a lockable fence. And then the front area will just be for employees and customers. So no, it works out. It's like ideal building and property
Oh, yeah, I was just looking.
for this business.
Commissioner Fox.
I don't see any problem.
Commissioner Harpy.
I don't have any problem with it. Progressive has no interest in this, correct?
No, they're selling the building.
Just the bill.
Selling
Yeah,
to
we've got a
Matt and
purchase
Bill.
and sale agreement with Progressive. They're
They don't do any
Downsizing.
repairs either, right?
Pardon me?
They ship the vehicles that come to them out.
They had originally used it as a center to evaluate the car.
Evaluate.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
as you can see over their time, it went from most of the building to smaller part of the building to none of the building. Now it's 110 cubicles
Yeah.
for administrative work.
You're in an interesting location. You have a guy that makes coffee. And on the street, you work everything off, right? You got a Big Sky Gym.
Cover all the
Maybe a
bases.
caffeine incentive for my employees would probably be a good thing.
I have no problem, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hoffman.
No problem.
Commissioner McComa.
Looks fine.
Commissioner
looks
Minor
good.
has his hand raised.
Minor as his hand raised.
Commissioner Minor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just two questions for you. Does the business perform any auto tuning or audio, or is it just what you explained before?
We do a various amount of additions to cars. In the electronic area, we do a lot of safety lighting, backup cameras, lane departure. We install these things. As far as other electronics, we do remote starts and we do radios as well.
Okay, but no performance tuning
Oh,
or
no,
high grade
No.
audio? Okay,
we do not, we don't repair cars, even though we need a repairs license. We don't do any repairs. It's all clean work. It's just that simple. There's not much else to installing van shelving, ladder racks for HVAC companies, like strobe lights for safety. Maybe some of those stuff. We did some for the state today.
okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
one-
Commissioner
one other
Fox.
question. When I first saw calibration, I was thinking dynamometer.
No.
Yeah, I was gonna bring my, my old Challenger in to see how many horses I'm doing.
Well, you can just line up on the Berlin Turnpike the way they used to do it. You don't need the number.
Bring it by anyways, like to see it.
Yeah. Now the actual question I had just flew out, so never mind. Thank you.
Okay, what's the commissioner's pleasure?
Well, let's see them in a public hearing.
Make a statement on the building.
Nice work.
Yes.
I make a motion.
I think you gotta do make a motion there.
Yep, and I think, again, as it was discussed, I'll just put it out there on that one. It seems like the commission is perfectly comfortable with the doors.
With the doors,
Yep.
yeah.
So again, it's no problem. Exactly. It's something that comes up.
They were there original.
Yep, there was one
Yeah,
again. That's why
exactly.
staff is like.
Now they're not. Now they're just coming back.
Yep. Again, these
All
are
I want to
those.
say, Mr. Town Planner, it's a good thing the Yankees didn't have a night game tonight.
No, but the Mets did.
Yeah, but luckily, thank you for sticking in there
You
on
see
that
that?
one. These ones are, again, they're pretty straightforward
Yeah.
on this, but this is an opportunity. And again, as the public noted too, it's an opportunity to see what's out there. The public hearing comes at the next meeting. People are informed of it instead of it just going quickly one night and done.
This is our future, so we would stay as long as we needed to.
Well, and I've seen their operation in Middletown. I've never seen an issue around it.
We're
It's
in the,
clean.
actually in the downtown business district in
Yeah.
Middletown. We had a special permit to operate there, and we've been there 25 years. Well, no issues with the city.
Okay. Petition TPZ 25-10 special permit, section 3.17.8 for a motor vehicle service use, vehicle calibration and aftermarket customization at 40 Commerce Court in the industrial zone. Applicant Matt Pensiero, contact Bill Jody's owner. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, application received 4/23/2025, 65 days to open public hearing by 6/27/2025. Move to table this application to 6/28/25 until after the scheduled public hearing.
Just one
Second.
correction of the motion, 5/28.
528.
628 or?
5/28.
528, okay. Is there a second?
I did.
Quickly. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, folks. Appreciate your time.
We'll see you on the 28th.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Okay, next is old business.
Oh, I can't hear back.
So these two items, they are currently tabled. Same thing with the alternative energy, since public hearing's open, can't be acted on.
I can't get my share back now.
Oh, you can't get your share back? Hold on. And then the other one, petition B. What I would just say, if you would like to, I said, I think petition A, no action. Petition B for the electrical vehicle charging, we just keep tabling it. You don't have to actually probably read the entire thing if you read the petition number and just have just a motion to table it to the 5/28 meeting.
Read, petition.
Yep.
Petition for
So B, right?
B, yes.
Petition TPZ 2525 zoning regulation text amendment. Motion to table till next meeting.
Yep, text
Is there a
amendment.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So it remains tabled.
I'm trying to grab this. Oh, you got it.
Okay, next is petitions for scheduling, anything?
Nothing right now. I'm trying to
Okay.
grab the Zoom back so Eric can, there we go. Now try sharing. I wonder if I stop sharing, if yours will come up. There you go. All right, we got it back.
All right.
All right, so no current petitions received for scheduling. We all know, if you want mind, I'll just jump to the next one, the town planners report.
Yeah.
So current land use applications are up, includes the land use applications here. Town planner update, I will reserve a longer town planner update for the next meeting because we've had a long night. As far as a business meeting goes, if there are specific questions for me, you can feel free to ask them at this time. What I would normally update on, other than saying, I think we all know that one Myra Cohen, you guys approved their extension and everything's underway on site. You can see it going pretty expeditiously. And other than that, we're just plugging along.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, second round of public participation. Everybody online?
No one that has their hand raised.
Okay. Remarks by commissioners. Commissioner Fox.
Yes, to the chairman, Eric, with all these motor vehicle things come up, it reminded me of something. Not quite out. But I think it was on, I guess it was on Holmes Road, I think, people that they had vehicles all over the place, they tried to,
That would be Stam Road.
but that was Stam Road,
That is Stam Road. We are in court with them as well.
in court with that.
Yes,
Okay, thank you very much.
you are very welcome.
Okay, any other commissioner remarks? Hearing none.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Can I say something?
Okay, got a motion in a
Thank
second.
everybody for showing up. And it's been a long meeting.
Everyone
Made a
vote, say
motion to
aye.
adjourn.
I think we're.
Aye. Well, we already voted on that.
You guys voted.
Thank you.
All
Have a
right.
good night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.